Welcome back. This is episode 8 of the Good Gossip Podcast. I'm Todd Revis.
I'm Melissa Elizondo.
We have another live in studio guest. He is a good friend of mine, and I love having friends of mine on because I get to share them with all my podcast friends. And so today we have the pastor of Life Church New Braunfels, Mr. Randy Henson.
Yes,
Look, I did that without messing up.
That's good.
That's awesome. Welcome, man. Well, the reason I wanted to invite you to come on this podcast that we're doing is because I really respect you. I think you've done a lot of good things in your life, and you're just an amazing guy. A lot of people look up to you, and but you have a great story too. And we wanted to share that story. One of the things we like that has come from this is different episodes. People are able to pull nuggets out that help them in their life and help them kind of compare their life to someone else's and realize they could do better or find ways to do better. So that's why you're here. Welcome.
Wow.
Are you excited to be here?
I'm so excited. I can't believe in 8 episodes you scraped the bottom of the barrel so quickly.
We already ran out.
So quickly.
Wow.
It was pretty fast. We ran everyone we know.
We had to
No,
resort.
you know a lot of people, so
No, I do. So that should make you feel good.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I feel great.
Well, if it makes you feel better, you were actually number 1 on the list of who we wanted on the show.
Oh wow.
So,
Yeah.
and I have proof of that. I can send that to
Wow,
you later.
thank
if
you.
Need it.
We brainstormed, and we started just brainstorming guests that we would love to have that we felt like would be good guests, and I said your name. I just blurted your name out.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel
Yeah.
blurred.
There was really no order.
So you may be number 8 on the show, but you were number 1 in our hearts.
Oh, thanks.
She's good, right?
yeah.
She's been in sales a long time. That's awesome. Okay, so
Okay, yeah, so he was reading me your bio because I don't know you. I've never met you. Thank you for letting us use your building,
Absolutely.
by the way, for doing this podcast. And he said, I'm just going to let you tell the story because I'm going to ruin it. So start from the beginning. You
Okay.
grew up where?
I grew up in the north side of Houston, and I did not grow up in church. So for me to be a pastor, even like as I step back today and think about how in the world did I get here, it is only through the grace of God. Whenever I was in high school, I started working at Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A has a huge part of my story, and they still are one of my absolute favorite places to eat because the food is so good. But
and you don't have to pray before you eat.
no, it's pre-blessed food.
Right.
Pre-blessed food. It's so
This
fantastic.
is not
They-
sponsored by Chick-fil-A, but it should
Not
be.
yet.
it will be someday. So, whenever I started working at Chick-fil-A, I was a 16-year-old, just angry, lonely young man that I didn't have any really good friends. And those people there kind of took me under their wing, and they started asking me to come to church. And I did not grow up in church. Most of my friends at the time were in gangs or in, drug dealers. I had a lot of friends that lived on the streets and spent time on the streets. And spending time with those people, and I had these 2 separate friend groups where I had my street friends, and then I had my Chick-fil-A friends. And my Chick-fil-A friends were these solid people that genuinely loved me, and they really wanted what was best for me. But I still had my street friends, and I had one foot in both camps. And so I remember one time I was walking to this corner store with a guy that was in a gang, and there was a guy that was working on his car, and as we're walking by, I said, "Hey man, you need any help?" Because I had dabbled in auto mechanics a little bit. And so the guy looks at me, it's punk, 16, 17-year-old kid, and he's like, "Man, I don't want your help, I'm fine." And then we went back and forth yelling at each other for a little bit because all I did was fought. That was so much fun, just fighting on the streets. And
But he was like, just didn't take you seriously, I guess.
no, he thought I was messing with him, but and I may have been. I don't know. I probably was. So I would probably still mess with him today. Anyway, so we go in the store, and I tell my friend that's in the gang. He always had a gun on him. So I said, "Hey, give me your gun in case that guy messes with me." And that's what you say to your friends all the time. Just in case that guy messes with me. And so he gives me his gun, and I put it in my baggy drawers. Because we wore these baggy drawers, and so I walk out of the store and I said, "Good day, gentlemen," as we walked by.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. I said some more things to the guy, And he climbs off of his hood, out of the engine compartment. He was leaning over, and he takes his shirt off. And I was like, "You don't want to mess with me." And I'm walking away, and he pushes me in the back. And when he pushes me in the back, I stumble twice, and then I put the gun right up to his forehead. And he's like looking at me straight in my eyes, and he said, "You won't." So I pulled the trigger, and the gun went, and it clicked, and that click scared him, and it startled him, and so he backed off, and then I'm looking at the gun, I'm looking at him, and then he turns around, gets in his car, and like just takes off, slams the hood down, takes off. Wow. And so my friend and I were laughing at the guy, and we have to go through this little trail to get back to where we were going. And I pulled his gun out, and I said, "Here's your stupid gun. It doesn't even work." And I pointed it at the ground and pulled the trigger, and it shot. And it, like, I still can hear the echo. And whenever that gun went off, I immediately thought, I would love to say that the clouds parted and God said to me, "Randy, why are you persecuting me?" But he didn't. It still took a while. But in that moment, I realized I could have killed that guy for absolutely no reason.
Nothing.
And I started spending less time in that camp and more time with the Chick-fil-A people in that camp. And it still took 2 years before I stepped foot into a church. But I started spending time with those people that genuinely loved me and they wanted what was best for me. And whenever I started spending time with them, it changed. Like, it changed how I interacted with people. And when I was 19, that's when I gave my heart to the Lord, and it's been a steady uphill climb since.
So it's interesting. You started changing your behaviors because of who you were hanging out with.
Yes.
More.
Yes.
And even though you weren't saved, even though you hadn't accepted Jesus, you were still just getting better as a human.
Yeah.
Because of the influence of the people around you.
Absolutely.
Man, that's so important. So I have a not as dramatic story, but I was one of those troubled teenage kids hanging out with the wrong people, stealing cars, on probation, in juvie, locked up for several years of my teenage life. And my probation officer kept going, "What are you doing? Like, you're a smart kid. You make straight A's. Like, what's happening?" And at the time, I couldn't tell you. As an adult, I realized I just needed attention, I think.
Yeah.
But I ended up literally having a nightmare one night. I had been on probation at that point for about 9 months. And my mom moved me to a new town to make new friends. And I was still starting to hang out with the same type of thugs. Yeah. And I had a nightmare one night that I was locked up again, and it felt so real. It felt so real, and I woke up going, I don't ever want to feel this again, ever. And that day, I made a decision to hang out with better people. And so there was this girl in my class named Brooke, and she was a cheerleader. Didn't know her family at the time, but she was super sweet, and she really meshed well with a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And I made a conscious choice, I'm going to be friends with that girl. And so I acted like I needed help with my chemistry or something. And she helped me. And then she invited me over to her house for a study group. And all of these good people came. And her mom was amazing, just in our life, so sweet. Loved the Lord, talked to us about it all the time. And through her, I met my now best friend too, Kim. And we were three amigos forever. And I changed my life by changing who I hung out with.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, people
and
think
they brought me to church, and I got saved, and did the
awesome.
whole thing too.
That's awesome. The most important thing.
Yeah.
People think that change. A lot of people are resistant to change because they think it's so hard to change. But change actually happens in a nanosecond, and then all you're doing after that decision to change is you're proving that you've changed. And it's just with every decision, you prove that you're a different person. You prove that the change actually happened, and you have a tendency to want to go back to the way it was because that's what's comfortable. But if you want to be a different person, you want to be a better person, you have to prove that change was real. And it's just a continuous choosing well over and over and over.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think, so a year ago I was meeting with a life coach, and he was saying how if you decide who you want to be, and you really decide, I want to be a person who does this, who does this, who does this, I want to have integrity, I want to be honest, I want to show up, I want to help people, I want to be present in conversations, you will start making those decisions to make that true. Yeah. If you really decide, this is who I want to be. And for me, that started last July. Things just started falling away that didn't align with who I wanted to be as a human being. And I thought, and I had to let go of relationships, and that was my conversation is, sorry, this just doesn't line up with the person I want to be.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good. It's
You
tough.
can change.
Yeah, it's tough to tell people that too. Hey, you know what, buddy? You're just not the kind of friend I want to have.
Oh,
I'm not actually saying. Not necessarily actually saying that.
Not yet. And then I'll know next time you put your arm on my shoulder.
You know when it's serious.
We had this joke. We had this joke at work because I used to work for a guy that before he fired somebody, he would pray with them, and you knew that it was trouble, right? It's kind of like if your boss takes you to a crowded restaurant, like in Jerry Maguire. Well, this guy would pray for wisdom and ask God to speak through him and all this. And I'm in there as a third party because I know the guy's about to get fired. And I'm like, oh, that's horrible. So I told my boss about that now. And so anytime he comes to my cubicle, he goes, hey, can we pray? And I'm like, no.
No, we cannot.
We cannot pray.
Yeah.
Wow. So when do they pray as a group? Like they both get to pray, or because you can do that whole prayer shot block thing that I've talked about.
Oh yes, tell that story.
What is that?
It's like I was a youth pastor for 16 years, so there would be times where I've always thought praying in a group is weird. Like I didn't grow up in church, so there's a lot of weird things about church that I just don't understand. The standing up, sitting down,
Cringy.
the clapping, the church culture things. And so whenever kids would pray in a group, like Susie would pray, Lord, please let Billy just notice me and ask me to prom. But see, all of Susie's friends know that Billy is a punk and he should not, like Susie does not need to be anywhere near Billy. And so Susie's friends will pray, Lord, give Susie discernment. Let her know. So Susie's prayers
Got
like
shot blocked.
It's like going up to heaven, just beautiful prayer, and then Susie's friend's prayer is like just totally shot blocked that prayer back down. Didn't even hit the ceiling, like just got shot blocked. So that prayer shot block is
It sounds like my friends when they pray for me.
You pray for one thing and they pray against that thing.
They're like,
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
that's awesome. Okay, so so during that time, you're already going to Chick-fil-A, and then my understanding was eventually you were an
Promoted.
owner-operator of one. Like,
Yes.
how did that happen?
Yes, so there was a store in Lake Jackson, Texas. At the time was about maybe 18,000 people, something like that. It wasn't a really big town, but they had a mall. It was a regional mall, and the mall was not a very busy mall. But the town was growing, so they built a freestanding Chick-fil-A right outside of that in 1996. And when they built that freestanding Chick-fil-A, the lady that owned the one inside the mall moved to that one outside the mall because she had spent a lot of time building that community up and getting people to come to Chick-fil-A. And so that was going to be a very low volume store. So I'm 21 years old. They needed somebody with passion and fire to come in and run that store. And so I'm like, hey, we'll do it gladly. So they offered it to me. I went and did some interviews and they said, yeah, we'll let you be the temporary operator of this store. And so I was just totally blown away. I was going to make like $20,000 a year. I don't know, what am I going to do with all this money? And so I go there and we just loved, again, I love Chick-fil-A. It's a real, what they say they are, they actually are. And so we ran that store for 2 years on a temporary basis. And then they asked me to become the full-time owner operator of it. And so I went to Atlanta where their home office is and spent time there in the training. And it was a phenomenal experience. We were there for 7 years. We were in that low volume bottom. There was 1,200 stores at the time, and we were in the bottom 100 every single year in sales. And but I owned my own business. I'm a 21-year-old kid that barely finished high school, and I own my own restaurant. And it's like I just felt phenomenally blessed. And so we had I ran into the vice president of operations at our Chick-fil-A seminar. Every February, Chick-fil-A does a seminar, and they invite all the operators and their spouses to come together and just kind of celebrate how Chick-fil-A's done. And so I invited him. I said, hey, come to my store, but don't tell me when you're coming. Like, I would really like for you to come and see what we're doing. Chick-fil-A is known for having great service, and our store scored in the top 5% of all Chick-fil-A's in service. And so we were really, really good. we did everything the right way. We did it the way we're supposed to do it. And that always pays off in the end, I've found. In any area of life, you do it the right way, it's going to pay off. And so I challenged him, hey, come visit my store. I want you to tour my store, but don't tell me when you're coming because I don't want to know, because I don't want you to think I prepped for you. Like, this is how we do things. And so he came out and we sat down in the dining room and he said, I don't know why you are in this store. And I'm thinking,
What?
he's about to fire me. He said, you guys should be in a much higher volume store. Like, y'all are doing everything right. It was a 25-year-old store at the time, and he said, I can tell you this is the cleanest 25-year-old store I've ever been in. Because my wife is very, very detailed. She was my manager, very, very detail-focused person, and she made sure the place was clean, like the wheels on the refrigerators, perfectly clean all the time. And so she's a phenomenal person. So they ended up moving us. Chick-fil-A, about 40 miles away, came open, and it was in the top 50 in sales. It did $2 million a year in the mall. And so we moved to that one, and my income more than quadrupled, like in a day. So it was a very, very huge blessing. I'd never thought in a million years that I would make that much money in my life. And 14 months after I went there, I felt the strong urging of the Lord to go into full-time ministry and become a youth pastor. And
That's even more money.
Yes. No, yeah. Youth pastors get so much money. So I never once asked because we were going to the same church throughout all of these changes, and I never asked my pastor, hey, how much are you going to pay me to come do this? Because, I mean, I knew that he knew how much I would need to pay the bills. So we did that, and I can tell you, my kids had no idea that my income changed. That's how much the Lord blessed us. And,
I love that part of it.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, it was just great.
There were maybe some things you couldn't do, but like some of the vacations but you could still do all the things that your kids at that age were used to doing.
Yeah. They didn't know the difference. So it was, the Lord really blessed us. And so we went I was a full-time youth pastor, did that for a very long time. And my wife was the administrative assistant and then logistics coordinator at our church in Angleton. Yeah.
That's wild.
Okay, so then what happened? We're in New Braunfels now.
Yeah.
So we did that for like I said, a very, very long time. The average length of a youth pastor's career is 18 months, and I was there for 16 years as the youth pastor. Wow. And just because the Lord kept blessing us, we kept at it. The Lord has blessed me to be faithful. So I can do the exact same thing every single day if it's something that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. Like right now, I'm doing this challenge. It's called 75 Hard. It's the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life.
I know. Lord Jared's done that, yeah.
You have to do 2 workouts a day, 2 45-minute workouts. One of them has to be outside, even if it's raining, which has been fantastic. And then you have to drink a gallon of water a day. You have to read 10 pages of a book. You can't do any cheat meals, any alcohol, and you have to take a progress picture. And believe it or not, the progress picture is like the worst thing to do that every single day. I've forgotten to do that several times, and I have my alarm go off at 11:50, but right before midnight to make sure that I do that. So anyway, it's a silly thing, but that being disciplined like that has helped me be disciplined in several areas of my life. So I've been able to the Lord has blessed me to be faithful, and so being faithful and speaking to teenagers at just the right time, like someone, kind of took me under their wing. Chick-fil-A really helped me. The owner operator of the store that I worked at took me under his wing and taught me leadership and taught me, what it means to speak into someone's life at the right time. And so I did that for literally thousands of teenagers. And
yeah, I want to get back to the teenagers because I've recently got to go back to Angleton with him on a Wednesday night and kind of check out the culture of their church and what he's trying to do here, what his vision is for here. And I was blown away. I knew that they had a big youth group, but I can't even describe it. But I wanted to ask you, like, how many kids would come on a Wednesday night for where you feed them dinner and then have a worship and get to minister to kids, and what percentage of those weren't even members of your church, and why is that a thing?
So before COVID, we'll just talk about normal numbers before COVID. It was about anywhere between 300 and 600 kids from from kindergarten to 12th grade that would be at church. Now, about 80% of those kids were drop-offs. So their parents were not at the church. They would either get dropped off there or we would pick them up at the schools. For the junior high and the high school, we drove buses to those, and our buses looked different. They were vinyl wrapped. It said Life Church on it, and everyone knew. So the kids would come and jump on the bus. We'd take them to church, and then they would have to get picked up at the end of the night. So it basically gave parents a free babysitter, and but it had a huge impact on the cultures of the homes when those kids that had no church at all in their families would go home. And I can't tell you how many times I had a teenager's parent come to me or call me and say, "Hey, what'd you do to my kid?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "My kid's washing the dishes and I'm not telling them to do that." And I said, "Oh, we've been talking about honoring our parents and being obedient and doing things we're supposed to do." And they say, "Well, keep it up." And I said, "Well, you can come to church too." Not that we were bringing the kids so that we could kind of trick the family into coming. We believe that the kids are the church today. They're not going to be the church later. They're the church today. And so they can have an impact on their communities today. And so that's how we always taught them. So it really did have an impact on our community.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah. A lot of
So
kids.
I predict right now that's going to happen in the Braunfels.
Yeah. What I've hated over the years is how many kids have fallen away from church, and a lot of kids are not getting the kind of youth groups that you did or that I grew up with once I, found Christ. And I love my youth pastor. I'm still in contact with her today. And we would do fellowship at her house even. We did church camp together, but she was my solid rock. Yeah. And shout out to Carrie.
And that changed my life. I was always a church kid. I was the opposite of you. I was there every time the doors were open because my dad was on staff and we traveled around different churches. But a couple of my brothers and I finally found a big, solid youth group in high school. And it was called Park Hills Baptist. And Rob Shelton was our youth pastor, and he was a lot like you. He was as smart as the nerdy guys. He was more athletic than the athletic guys. And so he was all things to all people. And everyone felt like he loved them, and that he made everyone feel great. And so and made us, challenged us, and he taught us theology that was beyond high school. He was teaching stuff he was learning in seminary, and it was really cool. In fact, one of the guys, Phil Schroeder, a friend of mine, he's now a pastor, and when he got to seminary, his seminary professors were blown away at what he already knew.
That's good.
And it was just what we did on Friday mornings at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Or we had these cool like breakfast club. We bring donuts and we'd sit around on beanbags and do a Bible study every Friday morning. So church camps, learning leadership for the younger kids. I loved it. And I think that every kid should be able to have that experience for sure.
So would you say though that the kids of today are probably the hardest? I feel like their suicide rates are through the roof.
Yeah.
I have they're 18 and 19 now, but I have kids, and through that time I've never seen more kids commit suicide. Mm-hmm. I've never seen more people not have the stable foundation at home. It's just, maybe it's always been there, but for whatever reason, because I was raising them through this,
Yeah. I think that every generation has its challenges, This might go off track a little bit, so.
We don't have a track.
We don't have a track.
Well,
there's no track.
With what happened this past week with the parents meeting at Vail in Arizona, the parents went to the school board meeting and they wanted to, they came with the science and they said, "Hey, we want to have our kids unmasked." They had there was no one under 20 years old that had died in that county of COVID. And so they said, "We don't want our kids in masks. It does damage to them." And they were talking about how they had an 11-year-old commit suicide there in town. It just breaks my heart just thinking about it. That they had one of the parents had a 5-year-old, and they said, "You know what, honey, we're not going to wear masks anymore outside." And they took the mask off the kid, and the kid starts screaming, "No, the air's going to kill me, Mommy. Please don't let me." These kids are coming up in a completely different, very, very dark time. Mm-hmm. And so it's our responsibility to interpret for them. And that's why kids ministry is so important to us, because we are the ones that are supposed to be on the watch, the watchmen on the wall, supposed to be interpreting culture for them. and saying, look, that as dark as it seems, there's hope. You know, it doesn't have to be like this. What you're hearing on TV and on the internet, that's not truth. The truth is the Word of God. The truth is what you're learning in the Word of God. So I think that there are many, many challenges nowadays that we would have never even considered. Kids are learning stuff that at 10 years old that we learned at 18 years old, you know, and it's just...
It's prevalently available to them
Yes.
right now. I was having coffee with my pastor yesterday, and we were talking about youth and how important it is and what we're dealing with in this culture. Because a lot of times, and the reason suicide's so high, I think, is because a lot of times they can't see past what's happening right now. They don't understand that there's another side to this, that you're going to get through it. And a lot of times what we are reading biblically is very sound advice. You know, if you and we pulled apart a few of those scriptures yesterday, but we were talking about how a lot of things that you shouldn't do, let's say for instance, and let's all admit that we're probably, you know, the most sinful people in the world, but there are things that are in the Bible that he's guiding you through and saying, listen, if you don't do these things, you can have peace and you can have wholeness and it helps you better connect to the Lord so you can get through life. But whenever we're filling our souls with things that are just not good for us, scientifically even backed, not good for us, off subject as well. One of the things that my daughter and I did a Bible study years ago when she was a teenager on marriage. And one of the things it talked about is, you know, God created, and this is going to be weird, I don't know if you are going to like this, but God created sex for a reason. And when you have sex outside of marriage, there's scientific things that happen, right? You produce endorphins, dopamine, you feel like you're in love. And what happens is if you're having sex outside of marriage, you're falling in love with this person that might not be the best person for you. You put him on a pedestal, you have rose-colored glasses, you can't see. Yeah. And the guy who did this, he's actually out of Houston as well, Gary Thompson, I think was his name. And he says, he does marriage counseling as well as a pastor of his church. And he says, a lot of times these couples will come to him and say, that isn't the person that I married. And he would say, that's exactly the person you married. You just had rose-colored glasses on. And so you have a choice in who you marry. All this stuff's in the Bible. All of it's in the Bible.
It's like what you've talked about in church. Like, it's not like a book of rules, or maybe it was from our video Alpha that we're watching. It's not like a book of rules because God wants to punish you in your room like a 15-year-old. It's designed to give you peace and give you joy and give you a good way to go through this really crazy hard life. And it's going to be hard. And if we choose the right things, then it goes easier. But just like teenagers, we adults tend to, no, this feels good. Yeah. And then with just ripples and years of paying for those choices, because like you said earlier, it's choosing every day to prove that you are excited about what you want to be or what you've chosen to be. Choosing daily.
How hard is it being a pastor and having people be in your flock so you can take care of them and see what they're going through and living their life, and then they leave? Like, you have people leave for different reasons, or you have conflicts within your church. I mean, that's a lot of drama. Let's just be real, right?
Yeah,
it's a lot of drama.
Sure.
Because it's people. So, you know.
Yeah, people are the absolute best thing about church, and people are the absolute worst thing about church. Absolutely. But we would always say, you know, people will be people. You can't. You try to do your very best when the people are in front of you, and then what they do with that it's completely up to them. So if you're asking, how difficult is it when someone leaves? It breaks my heart every time, every single time, even if I didn't like the person.
Wait, pastors aren't allowed to not like people.
What? That's weird.
What?
You're not human.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. One of the issues I have as a pastor is I don't know if it's an issue. A lot of people say it's a good thing. The people that come to our church say it's a good thing, but I do not put a mask on. I am me. If we go if we go play basketball, I am me. If we go play golf, I am me. If I'm standing on the stage preaching, I'm the same guy. I'm not putting a mask on. And I tell people,
You talking about a COVID mask?
No, he means a figurative.
I'm not putting that on
Seriously,
either.
I've heard you say I'm not putting a mask on so
Yes.
many times. That's
Yes,
what I thought.
yes. No, I wasn't talking about COVID.
You are who you are.
I am who
everywhere
I
you are.
am.
I like
Is that Popeye?
I am what I am.
Yeah.
And that's all that I am.
Yeah. So I'm just, I try to be authentic and for good or bad. And it's worked, I think.
No one's ever said it like he said it, and he says it every so often about compartmentalizing God.
Yeah.
And how we have our work life. Will you tell that?
The secularization of Christianity. And so what people like to do is they like to have these spheres where you have your family life here, and then you have another sphere that is your work life, and then you have another sphere that is your fun, and then you have another sphere that is church or Christianity. Or Christianity is its own sphere, and it's secularized. It's separated. And so those things don't infect each other. They have nothing to do with each other. You're one way at work, and you're one way at home, and you're one way when you're having fun, and you're one way at church. And that does not work. It's supposed to be, you are the same all the time. It's supposed to be interwoven. And your Christianity is supposed to be over all of it. Every single decision you make, it should be passed through the lens of the Bible. It should be passed through the lens of, is this going to make me a better follower of Jesus? And if it's not, then you shouldn't do that thing. It's really simple. I like to oversimplify.
It's really simple.
It's really simple to know what to do.
is.
That's what I mean. It's really simple to know what to do. It's not really simple to do it every time, but it's really simple to know what to do. As a believer, you ask Jesus to come live in your heart, and he's there. So you always know what the right thing to do is. You don't always choose the right thing. Obviously, I don't always choose the right thing. I really would like to sit here and say that I do, but I do not always choose the right thing. But I do try. Whenever I realize, look, you chose poorly, dummy. Like, I'll fix it. And that's what we all should do. Whenever we realize we're off track, we get back on track. Stop doing that and get back on track. And it really is that simple. Like, we think, oh, I'm so far off track, I might as well continue on this other track, because God's mad at me now and there's no way he would take me back. But we all know the prodigal son story, that he's not just there with his arms folded tapping his foot. He will see you when you're far off, and he wants you back. And so for anyone that's felt like they've done too much bad or too much wrong that God can't forgive it, trust me, he has more forgiveness than you have sin. Absolutely.
Awesome. Anything else for our distinguished guest?
I should have wore a tie. Oops.
You should have worn a tie. Don't grab your microphone.
Sorry, I thought it was my tie.
Is this your first time on a podcast?
It is my first time.
It's only our 8th time doing one. So.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
This happens when I meet somebody for the first time. I just start thinking about everything.
yeah. Oh, and that's what
I
we
ponder.
love about this podcast, because we're going to sit and go, whoa. And one of the cool things we do with each podcast, we pull nuggets out, and other people do too. Like, something we said today will affect someone, hopefully in a positive way, and they'll be able to ponder on that. And my wife, Nancy, is a good judge of that, because she can't wait for them to come out. And then she'll listen to it, and she'll go, okay, here's my nugget. And then our friend Suzanne, here's my nugget I got from Melanie or from
I
David.
swear, every time her comment is, "This is my favorite episode so far." Yeah. Every one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never know how people are going to respond to it. And it shocks me sometimes when someone says, that's my favorite. And I'm like, okay. I was kind of down. I was kind of blah, you know. And but yeah, so
That's
everybody
good that you're putting out these blah podcasts that you really feel excited about.
In 5 countries.
we have 5 countries that listen to our podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 nations. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I know what a country is.
And 52% of our listeners are men.
I don't know what's happening.
I think it's the masculine vibe I put out. Like,
Probably.
I just
Most likely
draw
that's-
them in. Like,
That's what it is.
and I told her I would just keep being manly, super
think it's that
manly,
at all.
like I am.
Yes, yeah. It's the beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, is this about beard care products? That's who we could get sponsored by, a beard, like a
Yeah.
beard creams or something.
That seems.
Side note: we need sponsors.
This isn't free. These things cost money. No, we're having fun. So this moment in time, we're gonna finish up with a question. We're gonna just ask you to gossip in a good way about somebody in your life, somebody you know or have known or whatever you want to talk about. Just tell us. We're going to brag on somebody.
Okay. How long should this take me to think about? I didn't know this question was coming.
He barely knew.
You barely knew.
But everybody struggles with this because there's 4 people that jump in your brain,
Yep.
right? And so you just got to pick. And you know, it's not necessarily the best one, or it could be.
Okay,
Who do you think needs to hear it?
Oh yeah, you always say that.
Oh, who needs to hear
Because
it?
it could be an
Needs to hear a
encouraging
good
thing
word
to
about
them.
themselves.
So the easiest one would be my wife, but I'm not going to go there because I think that's probably what you thought I was going to
That's
say.
what I thought.
Yeah. So I'm
course,
not.
'cause you're-
Therefore, he will not do it.
But I will. So side note, Jessica is his wife, and she is his everything in the world. And she takes care of him. She feeds him. She clothes him. She makes him go to bed. She makes him get
tells
up.
me
She
what to
does.
wear.
No, seriously, she does everything, and she does everything for the church. We couldn't be where we are as a church without her. And so I'll just take that one for
Thank you. She's absolutely amazing.
He picks on her. That's his humor. And some people at church are like, is he really like that mean to her? Like he's always complaining about her, but that's just his sense of humor.
Yeah, trust me, she can handle it.
She can dish it too. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
she absolutely can.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
she's
scared to
next
death
level.
of her, really.
Yeah. So there is a guy that goes to our church. His name is Mo Rogers, and if you ever come to Life Church, you will meet Mo Rogers. He will hug you.
He will seek you out.
Every single person that comes to church, whether they want to or not, is going to be hugged by Mo. Because Mo is one of the best people. He is the happiest. He is the most full of life person that I have probably ever met. He's just a phenomenal guy. Mm-hmm. And he recently had back surgery, and so he needed some help moving some stuff. So we went over to his house, and I just put a call out to the church, and a bunch of people came over, and it was great because we were all able to help them move some stuff. And so he had this giant bus in his driveway that he said a bunch of situations lined up perfectly to where he was able to buy this old tour bus. It was from an old musician. You may have heard of her. Her name was Selena. Have you heard of Selena?
Selena.
Yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell.
Anything
just
for
kidding.
Selena.
It was Selena's bus?
It was Selena's bus. Isn't that crazy? So we asked him all these questions about it, and he said, yeah, it was just this great thing. And so we were blown away. And he said, our plan had been to build this bus out, and we were gonna go to Colorado or somewhere else in the winter.
Use it like an RV
in
kind
the
of
summer.
thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. It was a tour bus, like an actual with the bunk beds in there and for musicians and everything. And so he said we were gonna go up north in the summer, and we were gonna come back down here in the winter. And he said, but we got plugged into this church, and now our whole life is getting wrecked in a good way. And so
That's so cool to hear.
So blew me
He's
away.
not using it?
No, he's
you wanna sell
still
it?
working
He's
on it.
restoring it.
Yeah,
I need a tour bus.
yeah.
We
Who
probably need a
doesn't?
tour bus when we used to take this show on the road.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
No, Mo's great. Mo is just will see you from across the room, and he will just go for it. And he's just so genuine. He got my phone number Sunday. Came up to me and said, "Hey, give me your phone number. We need to talk." And I was like, "What about?" He said, "We just need to talk." Yeah. And I'm the same way. I'm like, "Yeah, we do need to talk because there's things about you I don't know yet, and I need to know everything. So let's do this." So we're supposed to get together for lunch or coffee or something pretty soon.
That's great.
Yeah, he's great. Shout out to Mo. This may be the first podcast Mo ever listens to because I'm going to tell him he has to listen to it so he can hear something cool at the end. And
That's how we get new listeners, by the way.
He might be our oldest
At the
listener.
end, we're like, hey, they mentioned you.
You know, it's how we get some of our guests because
Yeah,
you
our
know,
next guest
our next
was
guest
a
we got
shout
'cause
out
it
from
was
the last show that we did.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe we'll have Mo on. He would wreck this place.
Yes, he would. Everyone would be laughing.
They
Mo
would
is
be
awesome.
laughing. Mo is in sales. He was in sales. He's retired, and he would be one of those guys that goes and picks up 5 cars in Bernie and then drives them down to San Antonio and sells them. And he had this thing going on. And
How do you
everybody
drive 5
knew-
cars?
What?
How do you drive 5 cars?
Oh, with a trailer. We drive them up there.
That makes more sense than what I was thinking.
That's funny.
It's logical.
Well, that was awesome.
Thanks for coming on the show and
better
telling
than we
us
thought
about your
it'd be.
life.
Absolutely.
and
No, I'm just kidding.
hopefully somebody gets something out of it, and I know I did. That was fun to talk about. So,
Thanks.
all right. So Chick-fil-A. I'm just kidding.
seriously though, our audience is growing, and so if you know of anybody who would like to get some publicity from us talking about them, that's how it works. And so we can talk offline about that. Like, subscribe. On YouTube, there's that red button that says subscribe. Just subscribe that. If we get to 100 subscribers, it gives us more power.
We can do custom stuff. Yeah,
you can do more cool things with YouTube.
Yeah.
And then, but it's neat to track the demographics of it. You know, like we said earlier, we're in 5 countries. Mm-hmm. Somebody in Australia, somebody in the Philippines, UK.
No, we're not Malaysia.
No.
Who was it?
I don't remember. But anyway, we have all kinds of countries listening to us.
Yeah.
And so this has been fun. We thank you, Randy, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Again, like, subscribe, share if this meant something to you or you think it would be good for somebody else to hear. Please do that and rate us. Rating us apparently is a good thing too. Thank you for the 11 people who have rated us so far with the 5 stars. We appreciate that.
Awesome. All right. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.